Abdurrahman al-Amoudi's political efforts in America would become eclipsed by those of another Muslim Brotherhood front group. Immediately after the events of September 11, 2001, a coalition that included the Council on American-Islamic Relations, CAIR, and other Muslim Brotherhood front groups condemned the attacks. On September 16th, CAIR took out a full-page ad in the Washington Post denouncing the attacks.
Yeah.
Within hours,
right.
CAIR's Nihad Awad was prominently positioned next to President Bush.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bush.
The face of terror is not the true faith of Islam. That's not what Islam is all about. Islam is peace.
How did CAIR get this close to power? Since its inception in 1994, CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations, established more than 30 chapters across the country. And since 9/11, CAIR has achieved nationwide acceptance, from the inauguration of CAIR Days in Houston and Tampa, to the support of mayors, governors, congressmen, and senators. In 2007, PBS's Ray Suarez did an uncritical report that whitewashed CAIR's ties to radical Islam. He stated that, quote, "There have also been claims that some members of CAIR have terrorist links, but there have been no charges linked to CAIR itself," unquote. That statement omitted the fact that 3 CAIR leaders had been convicted on terror-related crimes by that time.
Hence the congressional bill pending in Congress.
Muslim Brotherhood spiritual leader, Yusuf Qaradawi.
If you look at Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, one of the most famous Muslim scholars in Cairo, Egypt, he has said unequivocally that people who commit suicide bombings and acts of terror are completely outside the bounds of Islam.
In truth, for years Qaradawi has emphatically preached in support of suicide bombings.
Yep.
شهيدا ومن أجل هذا أجزت حتى العمليات الاستشهادية لأنه يستشهد في سبيل الله يقدم روحه على كفه في سبيل الله فنحن لا ننحي الدين عن المعركة لا بالعكس.
In addition to enlisting the news media as defenders of CAIR, CAIR also shaped its message and image by intimidating America's entertainment ambassador, Hollywood.
Hollywood has not been our ally. Hollywood has distorted the facts. Hollywood has shown freedom fighters as terrorists. Hollywood has done the work that Zionists could not do.
That's what they get for trying to show the truth, and then they bow down to these bastards.
The group protested movies like True Lies, Executive Decision, and 1998's The Siege.
This grievance of these groups were given extraordinary play by the media. And that surprised us a bit, because here we had all of this data talking about what had happened already in America, and what indeed might well someday happen, and yet the media felt obliged to give that kind of equal credence.
Liberal pandering. Liberal pandering,
CAIR was even more successful when pressuring filmmakers to change the villains from Islamic terrorists to neo-Nazis in 2002's Sum of All Fears. The producer of that film, Mace Neufeld, said, "Before we had typed a word on paper, I was getting complaints." The director, Phil Alden Robinson, wrote CAIR directly, "I hope you will be reassured that I have no intention of promoting negative images of Muslims or Arabs, and I wish you the best in your continuing efforts to combat discrimination."
We have received countless letters from our viewers asking why.
A little fast forward here. A little more.
Freedom.
A little more. There it is, come on.
Also embraced by some within the FBI and other law enforcement.
Yeah, let's back it up. There we go.
After 9/11, CAIR was also embraced by some within the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. Joint sessions with CAIR were held routinely throughout the country.
I also am on the made and available list for my BlackBerry for CAIR. Now, Mr. Hoover, I don't know what he does all day, but I know I get BlackBerries, must be 10 emails a day from CAIR. And if I'm not aware of what's going on in CAIR, I will be at a loss.
My record is
clear. CARE is not a terrorist supporting organization. That is my experience. That is my interaction. And if you want to promote that, you're on your own.
And you are stupid and
While
ignorant.
ingratiating
Both.
itself with law enforcement, CARE simultaneously discouraged other Muslims from cooperating with authorities. In late 2008, in the course of the largest terrorism financing trial in U.S. history, CARE was officially described as a front group for Hamas by an FBI agent on the witness stand. Prosecutors named CARE as an unindicted co-conspirator in the trial.
You betcha.
With mounting scrutiny, the FBI officially cut its ties to CARE, explaining its decision in letters to inquiring congressmen. Until we can resolve whether there continues to be a connection between CARE or its executives and Hamas, the FBI does not view CARE as an appropriate liaison partner. CARE launched an all-out verbal assault on its former partner as a form of damage control, propagating incendiary conspiracy theories.
That actually the FBI, over the last 8 years, have been engaging in actually paying informants as instigators.
The FBI, by using informants acting as agent provocateurs, has recruited more so-called extremist Muslims than Al-Qaeda themselves.
The deception continues.
We need to establish this problem everywhere. You don't get involved just because it's the American thing. You get involved in politics because politics can be a weapon to use to take the control of Islam.
Because of our tolerance of other faiths, we don't query Islamists. We don't probe into it as we do political ideology. We give them the protection of religious freedom, when in fact it's a divisive, insurgent political ideology that threatens Western security, and yet we allow it to live under the bubble of protected religious speech, of protected religious freedom.
American culture is very tolerant, and it doesn't like to accuse people of things, you know. We like to give people a fair shake, and we're fair and honest people. And to that extent, we don't like to believe bad things about people without hard proof. Without hard proof. And the things that these groups are involved in, particularly Muslim Brotherhood, they're very difficult to prove.
Many Americans want to be fair-minded, and if they're told by Muslim leaders, your suspicion means there's something wrong with you and you're probably a bigot, then all your defenses go down. The normal suspicion you might have over, well, wait a minute, what do you really believe here? What are you really after here? You become afraid to say it because you don't want to get marked as a bigot.
Increasingly, American institutions are engaged in self-censorship to stave off false charges of Islamophobia. In August 2008, publishing giant Random House scrapped plans to publish a romantic novel about Muhammad and his child bride Aisha, after an academic advisor warned that the book might offend the Muslim community.
Oh,
and
wah,
incite
wah, wah.
violence. When Yale University Press published a book about controversial Danish cartoons that sparked deadly riots in 2006, it chose not to include the cartoons themselves for fear of inciting more violence. Comedy Central's animated series South Park drew death threats over its satiric depiction of Muhammad in 2010.
This is a conscious strategy. It's to scream injustice, scream particular things so that people will never dare to ever question certain things. Being a bully helps. No one wants to deal with the bullies, so everyone says, let's just give them what they want. Let's, in a way, appease them so that they're not going to, keep banging, and they're just, let's just get them off our back.
In the first place, we should insist that if the immigrant who comes here in good faith...
Can't get them all down in Gitmo, but it sure would have been nice. They hate us. And these pandering liberal socialists don't get it. I don't understand why.
Officials and policymakers.
Your nation.
Come on.
The Muslim Brotherhood-affiliated groups have been masterful in getting government officials to adopt their censorship campaign, such as refusing to even utter the term radical Islam.
In the case of all three attempts in the last year, the terrorist attempts, one of which was successful, those individuals have had ties to radical Islam. Do you feel that these individuals might have been incited to take the actions that they did because of radical Islam?
Because of?
Radical Islam.
There are a variety of reasons why I think people have taken these actions. It's hard. One, I think you have to look at each individual case. I mean, we're in the process now of talking to Mr. Shahzad to try to understand what it is that drove him to take the action.
But radical Islam could have been one of the reasons?
There are a variety of reasons why people...
But was radical Islam one of them?
There are a variety of reasons why people do these things. Some of them are potentially religious based.
But all I'm asking is if you think among those variety of reasons, radical Islam might have been one of the reasons that the individuals took the steps that they did.
We see, say, radical Islam. I mean, I think those people who espouse a version of Islam that is not...
Are you uncomfortable attributing any of their actions to radical Islam? It sounds like...
No, I don't want to say anything negative about a religion that is not...
I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about radical Islam. I'm not talking about the general religion.
Right, and I'm saying that a person like Anwar Awlaki, for instance, who has a version of Islam that is not consistent with the teachings of it, and who espouses a radical version.
Could radical Islam have motivated these individuals to take the steps that they did?
I certainly think that it's possible that people who espouse a radical version of Islam have had an ability to have an impact on people like Mr. Shahzad.
Okay, and could it have been the case in one of these three instances?
Could that have been the case?
Yeah, could one of these three individuals have been incited by radical Islam? Apparently you feel that they could have been.
Well, I think potentially incited by people who have a view of Islam that is inconsistent with...
Mr. A.J., it's hard to get an answer yes or no, but let me go on to my next question. This has to do with...
Islamic radicals deliberately but falsely portray the fight against radical Islam as a fight against all Muslims.
This is not now a war on terrorism. We need to all be clear about this. This is a war against Muslims. It is a war against Muslims and Islam. Not only is it happening worldwide, but it's happening right here in America, that is claiming to be fighting this war for the sake of freedom.
And the liberals fall for this and pander more to them.
Just because they're Muslim. For no other reason.
A 2006 Canadian intelligence report finds that the single most radicalizing factor in motivating Muslims to commit acts of violence is the false claim that there is a war on Islam.
It started in Europe, but now in America too, saying, well, you can't both be Muslim and American. And so your Muslim identity comes first.
Oh, really?
So the loyalty issue then becomes more with Muslims all over the world.
Then go back.
Defending Muslim brothers and sisters was a crucial talking point for Anwar al-Awlaki, the bin Laden of the internet. Prior to 9/11, the Muslim American Society, MAS, hired al-Awlaki to be the imam at the Virginia-based Dar al-Hijra Mosque. Once he moved overseas, al-Awlaki's language grew more violent towards Americans.
القضية الثانية لا تشاور أحدا في قتل الأمريكان. قتال الشيطان لا يحتاج إلى فتوى.
Al-Awlaki's appeal was high among youth. Brotherhood-linked groups in the U.S., such as the Muslim Students Association, found on 400 campuses nationwide, are a gateway to that audience.
I don't know this guy. I don't know what he did. I don't know what he said. I don't know what happened. But we defend Muslim brothers and we defend our Muslim sisters to the end. Exactly.
The important role that the Muslim Brotherhood plays is by educating young people and creating in their minds the worldview that the West and Israel and so on are threats to Islam. And they have a very effective narrative for socializing and indoctrinating new people. And once they're indoctrinated, it's only a short step from there to using violence to bring that about.
Students are not the only ones vulnerable to this rhetoric. The case of Nidal Malik Hassan shows what happens when censorship and radicalization mix. In 2009, Hassan, an Army psychiatrist, killed 13 people at Fort Hood.